At 33, I've decided to get married. Domingo let out a cold laugh. All right, if you say so. 3 months later, he ran into me at the obstetrics and gynecology department. His lips curled into a mocking smile. Laura, is this your plan? Before I could respond, a handsome man appeared behind me, carefully supporting me. Domingo stared at me in disbelief. I simply smiled, extending my hand adorned with a wedding ring. At 33, I've decided to get married. Chapter 1. After an intense night, I endured the soreness in my body as I got up and sat by the bed to get dressed. Domingo leaned against the headboard, lazily reaching for a post-coital cigarette. I spoke calmly, though my fingers clutched the bedsheet tightly, betraying my nervousness. At 33, I've decided to get married. His hand holding the cigarette paused momentarily before he chuckled hoarsely, his voice carrying a lazy arrogance. What do you mean? You want me to marry you? In the reflection of the bedroom's glass window, I could see Domingo's face clearly, every trace of mockery visible. Seeing that I didn't respond, his lips curled into a sneer. Laura, you know my type of wife could never be someone from your background. The small glimmer of hope I had instantly sank into the abyss, leaving only resignation. After a long silence, I spoke. Then, wish me happiness. Domingo immediately caught my meaning and replied indifferently. All right, if you say so. He lifted the blanket and walked into the bathroom. The loud slam of the door sealed the distance between us, separating us into 2 different spaces. I picked up my canvas bag and retrieved the few pieces of clothing I had left in his wardrobe. The clothes and jewelry Domingo had given me remained untouched. I didn't take them. They were never mine to begin with. The money Domingo had given me over the years was more than enough for me to live comfortably. Consider it compensation for my youth. When he stepped out of the bathroom, the room was eerily silent. The only clothes left scattered on the floor were his own. It was as if no woman had ever been there. But Domingo didn't care. Laura had thrown tantrums before, but she had never lasted more than 3 days before coming back. So Domingo wasn't worried. He was certain Laura couldn't live without him. He wasn't sure if he loved her, but he knew one thing for sure: Laura loved him to death. The next day, I submitted my resignation letter and booked a flight to a coastal city. Nothing in life couldn't be solved by a vacation. And if one wasn't enough, then 2. By the time I arrived at the seaside, the sky was already dark. I booked a small inn with a swimming pool. Domingo had taken me to similar private pools before, but his friends never liked me, so I always ended up sitting alone by the pool, sipping on a drink. This time was different. Wearing a bikini I had just bought from a roadside shop, I stepped into the water. I had learned to swim as a child, though I wasn't good at it. At least I wouldn't drown. As I swam, I noticed a small opening on one side of the pool. On the other side, there seemed to be an even larger pool, and the air carried a faint scent of lemons. Excited, I realized this and had a hidden surprise waiting for me. I swam through the opening and reached the other side. No wonder it smelled like lemons. There was a lemon tree growing in a small flower bed next to the pool. Fresh lemons exuded a light, pleasant fragrance. After a few strokes, I found the bikini straps digging into my skin. This was the boldest swimsuit I had ever worn. Apart from the essential parts being covered, the rest was all black straps, accentuating my pale skin. I stood up and adjusted the shoulder straps but couldn't get them right, so I decided to take it off and put it back on properly. Just as I pulled my top off, a deep, husky voice sounded behind me. Miss, did you really just break into my house to undress? The voice startled me so much that my hairs stood on end. My instincts made me spin around toward the source of the sound. I quickly covered my chest, but I knew very well that with my size, there was no hiding the cleavage. The man behind me was breathtakingly handsome. His expression flickered with slight surprise but soon returned to normal as he looked away. You swam into my house, he remarked, embarrassed. I quickly apologized. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'll leave right away. I turned and swam back the way I came, but I could still feel his intense gaze lingering on my back. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind kept replaying the image of the man. His tousled hair, sharp nose, slightly flushed lips, and toned muscles. His entire presence exuded the charm of a mature man. Shaking off my ridiculous thoughts, I eventually drifted off to sleep. But in the middle of the night, the urgent ringing of my phone woke me up. Still half asleep, I picked up the call without checking. A familiar voice came through. Domingo. He sounded drunk. Laura, come pick me up from the bar. In the past, I would have rushed over without hesitation to play his caretaker. But now, all I felt was frustration from having my sleep interrupted. I rubbed my temples in annoyance, my voice devoid of emotion. Domingo, we're over. You should call your new girl. Without waiting for a response, I ended the call and turned over to go back to sleep. Chapter 2. At the bar. Domingo's face darkened as he listened to the call being cut off. His grip on the phone tightened, revealing his frustration. David, sitting beside him, failed to notice Domingo's unusual reaction. He asked curiously, Domingo, is Laura coming soon? Another person chuckled mockingly. With Domingo's charm, do you even need to ask? Domingo pulled the woman next to him closer, and she snuggled softly into his embrace. He smirked arrogantly. Her? I got bored of her a long time ago. I actually called a new girl to pick me up. Time for a change tonight. The group burst into laughter. Domingo, you're the man. Meanwhile, I spent a few days at the beach before returning to my hometown. With my remaining savings, I bought myself a small 2-bedroom apartment. I had always dreamed of opening a dessert shop, and now I could finally make it happen. I rented a storefront on a nearby street, and renovations quickly got underway. During this time, I didn't stay idle. I signed up for a premium membership at a matchmaking agency. Everything I had told Domingo was true. I genuinely wanted to get married. I also wanted to have a child of my own. The agency worked fast. Within just 2 days, I had already gone on 3 dates. The first man was a small business owner. His every gesture screamed arrogance and self-importance. At 38, his bald head shone so brightly that I could barely keep my eyes open. The second was a regular office worker around my age. He looked plain, but throughout the date, all he did was subtly probe about my financial situation. When I mentioned that I owned an apartment, his eyes immediately lit up, and he eagerly suggested we could get married right away. I simply smiled and said, we barely know each other. Let's think about it a bit more. The third man was a university professor, but when I saw him, I froze. It was the same man I had run into at the beach. According to the matchmaking agency's profile, his name was Benjamin, and he was 35 years old. Benjamin was dressed in a well-fitted black suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. His neatly combed back hair revealed a smooth forehead and a strikingly sharp nose. I had to admit, even outside the matchmaking scene, his face alone was enough to turn heads. When Benjamin saw me, a flicker of surprise flashed through his dark eyes. Laura? I nodded, and he finally took a seat across from me. Feeling awkward, I forced a smile. Mr. Chan, what a coincidence. Benjamin's expression remained serious as he gave a simple nod. But then, I noticed his ears slowly turning red. Confused, I asked, Mr. Chan, are you feeling warm? He cleared his throat twice, his deep voice slightly hoarse. I'm fine. As I looked at Benjamin, his striking features, his refined demeanor, I couldn't help but feel puzzled. The matchmaking scene wasn't short on beautiful women, but I had never seen a man this handsome needing to go on blind dates. Mr. Chan, how long have you been in the matchmaking process? I asked. Benjamin took a sip of his coffee, his dark gaze meeting mine. This is my first time. I let out an awkward chuckle. That's quite a coincidence. I only just started as well. His large hand rested on the table, long fingers rhythmically tapping against the surface. I caught a glimpse of the luxury watch peeking out from beneath his cuff. I had seen the same model on Domingo before. A single watch like that was worth a lifetime of wages for an ordinary person. Since when did university professors make this kind of money? Then, I remembered what he had said when we met at the beach, that the house was his. As I was lost in thought, Benjamin's calm voice interrupted. Laura, what qualities do you look for in a partner? Huh? I blinked, caught off guard. Just a normal person, someone I can spend my life with. Taking care of each other, that would be enough for me. Benjamin's lips curled slightly. Your standards aren't very high. I nodded with a smile, trying to ease the awkwardness. And what about you, Mr. Chan? Benjamin leaned back lazily in his chair, his gaze fixed on me as he spoke. Your appearance fits my ideal type. I wasn't expecting such a blunt answer. For a moment, I just stared at him, completely stunned. Chapter 3. Benjamin seemed amused by my reaction, his brow arching slightly. You're not very confident in yourself, are you? I let out a dry laugh. I just didn't expect Mr. Chan to be so straightforward. His dark eyes locked onto mine. Laura, at our age, isn't the point of matchmaking to find a marriage partner? I'm very satisfied with you. I tightened my grip around my coffee cup, lowering my head slightly as I asked. Mr. Chan, it's clear that you come from a well-off family. Haven't they arranged a marriage for you? Benjamin didn't seem the least bit surprised by my question. His expression remained calm as he replied. My parents are open-minded. As long as I think someone is suitable and I like them, that's all that matters. Honestly, their only requirement is that my wife be female. Hearing such words from someone so serious, I couldn't help but laugh. The corners of my lips lifted naturally, and the atmosphere relaxed. Your parents sound interesting. That means Laura has a decent impression of me. From his looks to his demeanor, Benjamin was undeniably an outstanding man. I nodded honestly. Mr. Chan is quite exceptional. After our date, Benjamin drove me home. Before I went upstairs, we exchanged contact information. His profile picture was completely black, and his username was just his full name. A person like this seemed a bit cold. As soon as I walked through the door, the little kitten I had picked up a few days ago came running toward me, meowing softly. In a great mood, I reached down and stroked its soft fur. The kitten purred contentedly, rolling onto its back to reveal its chubby little belly. I had always wanted a cat, but Domingo was allergic to fur. It wasn't until now that I could finally fulfill this small wish. Less than 30 minutes later, my phone chimed with a message. It was from Benjamin. Home. I thought for a moment before replying. Okay, thank you for driving me home. A response came almost instantly. I can drive you home every day. My face suddenly felt warm, and a strange sense of anticipation welled up inside me. Okay. It didn't take long before Benjamin and I officially got together. Soon after, he took me to meet his parents. The moment Chan's mother saw me, she beamed with joy, holding my hands tightly as if unwilling to let go. Her well-maintained face was full of warmth as she said, Laura, if this rascal hadn't brought you home today, I would have thought he was making you up. I chuckled. Auntie, that's my fault. I should have visited you sooner. Chan's mother's smile widened. Make sure to come over often, dear. We can go shopping and eat delicious food together. The atmosphere in the Chan family was welcoming. While Chan's father wasn't a man of many words, he sat back and watched us with a smile in his eyes. Their home was enormous, clearly a top-tier luxury estate. Benjamin had already told me about his background when we made things official. His family owned one of the leading enterprises in City A. Most of the business was still managed by his father, which allowed Benjamin the freedom to be a university professor. He had told me that he genuinely enjoyed teaching. Even when he eventually took over the company, he didn't plan to give up his career as a professor. Chapter 4. After lunch at the Chan residence, the weather took an unexpected turn, and heavy rain started pouring outside. Worried about the conditions, Mr. and Mrs. Chan insisted that we stay for dinner. Having spent the entire afternoon with them, I was beginning to grow accustomed to the warm and easy atmosphere of the Chan household. When the housekeeper brought out beautifully plated dishes, I couldn't resist snapping a quick photo. Only after taking the picture did I notice something in the frame: Benjamin's arm as he ladled soup into my bowl. His forearm was defined, veins subtly visible, the kind that hinted at someone who worked out regularly. His long, well-proportioned fingers held the bowl steadily. As the internet often joked, hand lovers, you're in for a treat. Satisfied with my photography skills, I posted my first WeChat moment since breaking up with Domingo. Listening to the wind, waiting for the rain to stop. Attached was the picture I had just taken. After posting, I set my phone aside. Benjamin placed the bowl of golden chicken soup in front of me, his voice carrying a hint of warmth. The housekeeper simmered this with medicinal herbs. It's good for the body, have more. I stared at Benjamin for a moment, and suddenly, a memory surfaced, one from just a short while ago. That night, my period pain had woken me up in the middle of the night. It was unbearable. leaving me feeling weak and dizzy. With both my parents gone and no close friends or relatives nearby, I had no one else to turn to. In the end, I had no choice but to call Benjamin and ask him to buy me some painkillers. He picked up quickly, his voice hoarse from sleep, but instead of irritation, his tone was steady. "Laura, what's wrong?" At that moment, I was in too much pain to control the tremor in my voice. "Mr. Chan, can you help me buy some painkillers and drop them off? I really can't move right now. Otherwise, I'll just order delivery." Benjamin's tone immediately sharpened, suddenly urgent. I could hear the rustling of fabric. He was getting dressed. "Laura, what's wrong? Where does it hurt? I'll be there right away." My voice was weak as I reassured him. "It's nothing serious. Just the painkillers will do." Benjamin arrived quickly. I had already given him the code to my apartment door in advance. When he stepped inside, he found me lying on my bed, my face drained of color. Maybe I looked worse than I thought because, for the first time, I saw a flicker of panic on his usually composed face. His voice, though steady, carried a sense of urgency. "Laura, are you okay? I'm taking you to the hospital." Without waiting for a response, he scooped me up from the bed. Realizing that I was only wearing a thin nightgown, he quickly wrapped me in his oversized coat. Dizzy and in pain, I barely registered the moment he carried me to the hospital. After an 4 drip, the pain gradually subsided. The doctor's diagnosis was simple: eating cold food before my period had triggered severe cramps. Before leaving, the doctor glanced at Benjamin, then spoke in a deliberately slow tone. "Maintaining a harmonious married life can actually help reduce menstrual pain." I had barely recovered from the discomfort, but at that moment, I felt my entire face heat up. Flustered, I quickly tried to explain. "No, doctor, he's not." Before I could finish, Benjamin cut in smoothly, his voice calm and serious. "Understood. Thank you, doctor." Chapter 5. That night, when Benjamin drove me home, I felt like my whole body was burning up. Thankfully, he didn't say anything about it. Now, looking at the steaming bowl of chicken soup before me, a warm feeling spread through my heart. It had been such a long time since I last felt like someone genuinely cared for me. Smiling, I looked at Benjamin. "Professor Chan, you're really thoughtful." After dinner, the rain had lessened but still hadn't stopped completely. Mrs. Chan insisted that Benjamin and I stay the night. I hesitated and glanced at Benjamin. He merely watched me with a knowing smirk, clearly amused, deliberately saying nothing, taking advantage of my silence. Mrs. Chan went as far as instructing the housekeeper not to prepare a guest room, telling me to stay in Benjamin's room instead. Since we had already met each other's parents, staying together seemed like the natural course of things. I didn't object, but when I stepped into Benjamin's room, I suddenly felt nervous. Benjamin hadn't returned yet. His father had called him away for some business matters. I decided to freshen up first and headed to the bathroom to wash up. Shortly after, Mrs. Chan knocked on the door and handed me a brand new set of pajamas. When I put them on, however, I realized they were questionable in size. It was a 2-piece set, a spaghetti strap nightgown with a matching long-sleeve robe, but the nightgown barely reached the tops of my thighs. One wrong move and I'd be revealing more than I intended. Fidgeting, I tugged at the hem, then quickly buried myself under the covers. Only then did I check my phone. To my surprise, my WeChat post had over 99 plus notifications. I clicked on it, curious. I had never received this much engagement before. As I scrolled, I realized that besides some old classmates and colleagues liking my post, the rest of the notifications came from Domingo's group of so-called friends. Holy crap, did I see that right? Is that a man's arm? Laura isn't serious about this, is she? Domingo's gonna flip when he sobers up tomorrow morning. Domingo has other women in his arms right now. Why would he still care about her? True. Domingo can have any woman he wants. This wouldn't be some kind of playing hard to get strategy, right? If so, she's got some serious schemes. Just another cheap trick women play. Haha. I can't wait to see Laura come crying back to Domingo. Me too. This is gonna be hilarious. Ha 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 ha. Looking at the chaotic mess in my comments section, I felt nothing but disgust. I had never bothered deleting Domingo or his circle before because I thought it wasn't necessary. But now, I realized they were nothing but an eyesore. Without hesitation, I typed a final response in the comments. Thank you all for your concern, but I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I will be very happy. Then, one by one, I blocked and deleted every single one of them. These parasites should have been wiped from my life a long time ago. Chapter 6. Just then, the sound of the door opening echoed through the room, followed by familiar footsteps approaching. Nervous, I quickly shut my eyes, pretending to be asleep. The footsteps stopped beside the bed for a brief moment before moving toward the bathroom. Shortly after, the bathroom door opened again, and the bed dipped on the other side. Benjamin's familiar scent drifted toward me. A faint citrus fragrance, his body wash, blended with his own natural scent. It was intoxicating. I held perfectly still, barely daring to breathe. But then, slowly, he moved closer. A strong arm wrapped around my waist. Startled, I let out a soft gasp. My eyes flew open, and I found myself staring into Benjamin's deep, amused gaze. His voice was husky, laced with a teasing edge. Knew you weren't asleep. I glared at him. How did you know? Benjamin was so close, I could feel his warm breath against my skin. I don't believe you could sleep on a night like this. His lips curled into a smile, but in my eyes, he looked less like a gentleman and more like a wolf in sheep's clothing, ready to devour me whole. The grip around my waist tightened. Then, in a low voice, he asked, "Can I?" I lowered my gaze, hesitating in silence. Just as his grip loosened, just as he was about to pull away, I instinctively reached up and grabbed his arm, barely above a whisper. My voice trembled. Yes. In the next second, he flipped me beneath him, his lips crashing down against mine with unrestrained hunger. I had always known he had a great physique, but I never expected him to feel this good. Though, there was one problem: he was too strong. My nightgown was discarded in an instant. Every inch of skin his lips touched ignited with a tingling heat, and any remaining trace of rational thought quickly melted away. My skin flushed red, the warmth spreading all the way to the tips of my ears. That night, we both lost control. Fearing the sound would escape the room, I did everything I could to stifle my voice, but the more I tried, the more excited Benjamin seemed to become. Chapter 7. The sharp ring of a phone jolted me awake in the early morning, but I was too exhausted to move. I buried myself deeper into the blankets, ignoring it. Benjamin, still beside me, quietly slipped out of bed and walked to the balcony to answer the call. His morning voice was deep and husky. "Hello?" On the other end of the line, the caller hesitated, clearly unnerved by the unfamiliar voice. "Who are you? Where's Laura?" Benjamin frowned, already losing patience. "She's sleeping." "And you are?" The voice grew agitated. "She's sleeping? You too, last night." Benjamin let out a mocking chuckle. "We're getting married. Is it strange that we're together?" The caller went silent for a moment before letting out a bitter laugh. "Laura, you really are desperate. Do you think using such pathetic tricks will make me jealous? Women like you are a dime a dozen. I could wave my hand and have another just like you." Benjamin's brow furrowed in irritation. "If you need help, see a doctor. Don't act crazy over the phone," he snapped before hanging up. For a moment, he stared at the number on the screen, then shook his head and returned to bed. I was still sleeping, unaware of everything. Benjamin pulled me into his arms, a satisfied smile forming on his lips. By the time I finally woke up, it was nearly 10 in the morning. The moment I saw the time, I bolted upright. Benjamin, who had been lazily playing with my hair, was startled by my sudden movement. "What's wrong?" I clutched my head in distress. "It's my first time staying at your house, and I overslept. What do I do?" Benjamin chuckled, amused. "It's fine. No one cares about that. My parents wake up around this time too sometimes." Then, with a teasing smile, he added, "Besides, they understand." The implication in his words made my face flush. "Ugh, stop talking," I groaned, covering my face. Benjamin later told me about the phone call. "It didn't take much for me to guess that it was Domingo. Once upon a time, I would have taken his jealousy as proof that he cared about me. But now, I only found it childish and ridiculous." Because of that night, my relationship with Benjamin progressed rapidly. He started finding every excuse to stay over at my place. Even my little kitten had taken a liking to him, rubbing against his legs every time he came over. It was to the point that I, as the rightful owner, felt a bit jealous. Soon, the wedding was set. We only invited close family and friends from the Chan side, holding a forest-themed ceremony on a lush green field, the wedding I had always dreamed of. On that day, as I watched the man walking toward me, I felt as though happiness was reaching out to me, ready to embrace me. That night, tipsy from the celebrations, Benjamin pinned me beneath him, his warm hand gently stroking my cheek. "You're mine now," he murmured, his voice deep with satisfaction. After our wedding, my dessert shop opened as planned. It quickly became popular among local university students, and just as my business was starting to thrive, I discovered something unexpected. I was pregnant. Staring at the 2 lines on the test, my hands trembled as I texted Benjamin, "I think I'm pregnant." A reply came almost instantly. "What?" I sighed and clarified. "Pregnant." I even sent a photo of the test. Benjamin's next response was a single angry emoji. Confused, I asked, "What do you mean by that?" "Ugh. I just started enjoying my happy life. And now this little guy is coming to steal you from me." "Not happy." I burst out laughing at his childishness. "Are you serious? You're so immature," he quickly responded. "Actually, it's good. The sooner we have the baby, the better it is for your recovery. I'm coming home now. We're going to the hospital to check. There's no rush. I'll feel better after the checkup." Not long after, Benjamin's car pulled up in front of my dessert shop. After giving instructions to my employees, I left with him. At the hospital, everything went smoothly. I was 5 weeks along, and the baby was healthy. Calculating the dates, I realized the baby was conceived that night at the Chan house. As the doctor explained pregnancy precautions to Benjamin, I started feeling a little lightheaded from the strong disinfectant smell. Deciding to wait outside, I grabbed my bag and stepped out. But the moment I exited the room, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. Domingo. He leaned irritably against the hospital wall. The moment his eyes landed on me, they lit up with excitement. But as soon as he noticed the sign behind me, the maternity department, his expression twisted into something cold and mocking. "Laura, is this your plan?" I immediately understood his implication. I smiled and was just about to respond when a familiar voice interrupted. "Why are you standing here? You should be sitting and resting." Before I could react, Benjamin's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me close as he took my bag from my hand. "You're too skinny," he murmured. "You need to eat more from now on." Domingo watched our interaction with wide eyes, disbelief written all over his face. It took him a while to find his voice. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke. "Who is he?" I held up my left hand, letting the light catch on my wedding ring. Smiling calmly, I said, "I'm 33. I'm married now." Domingo's eyes were locked on my ring, his expression bordering on hysteria. No way, Laura. You love me. You love me too much to marry someone else." Benjamin, frowning, pulled me even closer, his grip protective. Lowering his head, he whispered, "Who is he?" I smiled gently. "An ex, I suppose." But that smile seemed to stab Domingo straight through the heart. His face contorted with anger as he stepped forward, staring Benjamin down with hostility. "You have no idea what your wife used to be like with me," he sneered. "She worshipped me. She obeyed me completely. We tried every position." "Domingo!" My voice snapped like a whip, cutting him off. I glared at him in shock and disgust. Never in my life had I thought he would stoop so low, humiliating me so openly, just to try and devalue me. I was trembling with rage. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced anxiously at Benjamin. Chapter 8. Benjamin's dark eyes were unreadable as he gently patted my back. Then, he turned his gaze to Domingo, a slow, mocking smile curling on his lips before he spoke. "Looks like my wife had terrible taste in the past. Ended up with you. Of all people." Domingo's bloodshot eyes darkened in rage, and before I could react, he threw a punch at Benjamin. But Benjamin was prepared. He caught Domingo's fist effortlessly and countered with a sharp blow of his own. Domingo stumbled backward, clutching his face, his expression twisted with fury, like a lion. raging yet utterly powerless. The commotion quickly drew attention, and a small crowd gathered, seeing two handsome men fighting. Some people even pulled out their phones to take pictures. Benjamin, however, had no intention of wasting any more energy on Domingo. He took slow, deliberate steps forward, looking down at him with an icy smirk. A real man knows how to let go. He said coldly, "You had your chance, and you threw it away. So why the hell are you pretending to be some tragic lover now?" Domingo struggled to his feet, his breathing heavy. "And you don't care about her past? We were together for 8 years. Benjamin let out a scoffing laugh. "I love her. That means I accept all of her. Only those who don't love enough waste time weighing the pros and cons." Then, his gaze swept over the onlookers. His voice turned even colder, carrying an unmistakable authority. "If I find any videos from today online, my lawyers will make sure the uploader loses everything." His tone was so sharp, so commanding, that the people holding up their phones immediately lowered them. Some even fumbled to turn off their cameras. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. "He looks really familiar. Isn't he Benjamin Chan?" Yeah. My sister told me he's also a professor at the university." "God. He's amazing and protective of his wife?" "I'm obsessed." Domingo, still panting, must have overheard those whispers too. His fists clenched as he turned to Benjamin. "You're Benjamin?" Benjamin's gaze dropped to him with a disinterested flicker. He didn't respond, didn't need to. His silence was answer enough. Domingo's face paled. If Benjamin had just been some ordinary man, Domingo could have found a way to get rid of him. But this was Benjamin Chan, a man from a family as powerful as his own. Suddenly, Domingo had no leverage. His voice wavered. "Laura, I know you're only with him to get back at me. You don't love him. Come back to me. I'll marry you." I frowned, just about to respond when a small figure suddenly rushed into view. A young woman ran up to Domingo, reaching out to help him stand, but Domingo violently shoved her away. She was already pale, but when she hit the ground, she looked as if she was about to shatter completely. Clutching her stomach, she whimpered, her voice trembling. "Domingo, my stomach hurts. It hurts so much." A second later, bright red blood bloomed across the white fabric of her dress. Gasps filled the air. Within moments, security had stepped in to restrain Domingo while the girl was rushed to the emergency room. As I turned to leave, Domingo grabbed the hem of my coat, his voice raw and desperate. "Laura, I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance." I pulled my coat from his grasp and met his pleading eyes with a calm, unwavering expression. "Domingo, it's over. Cherish the one who's still by your side." When we left the hospital, Benjamin kept a protective arm around me, guiding me gently, but he didn't say a single word. A strange, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. Finally, once we were in the car, I turned to him and asked softly, "Are you regretting it?" Benjamin blinked, caught off guard. "Regretting what?" I swallowed hard, my voice trembling. "Regretting being with me." Benjamin's eyes widened in shock before he straightened abruptly. "What? No. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" "I'm fine," I murmured. "Just answer my question." Benjamin frowned, as if confused by my logic. "Why would I regret it?" "Because I never told you everything about my past." I whispered. "You married me without knowing everything." Before I could finish, he let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head in exasperation. Gently, he reached out and wiped away a tear that had slipped down my cheek. "Laura," he said, his voice deep and teasing, "if I wanted to know your past, do you really think I wouldn't have found out on my own? You." I stared at him in disbelief. "I knew about you and Domingo a long time ago." I gaped at him. "But how? His social circle isn't even connected to yours." Benjamin smirked, lightly tapping the tip of my nose. "The world isn't as big as you think. Sometimes, you don't need to ask. You just know." I opened my mouth to say something, but he cut me off with an amused murmur. "And if I told you that I was interested in you even back when you were still running around after Domingo, what would you think?" "Huh?" I was so stunned that I could only blink at him in silence. Benjamin leaned in closer, his forehead pressing gently against mine. Our breaths mingled, his voice dropping to a whisper. I've liked you for a long time. Chapter 9. Later, I found out that Domingo had been at the hospital that day because he had taken his new girlfriend there for an abortion. And that shove, it had landed her straight in the ICU. Apparently, a woman's body is extremely fragile after an abortion, and Domingo had used his full strength when pushing her. Because there had been so many witnesses that day, the incident quickly blew up. The backlash was massive, and Domingo's family, in an attempt to minimize the damage to their reputation, made a swift decision. Within a few weeks, they sent Domingo abroad to gain experience at one of their international branches, and it was clear he wouldn't be coming back anytime soon. At least, not for another 3 to 5 years. On the day he left, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. Without much thought, I answered. For a long moment, there was only silence on the other end. Just as I was about to curse out whoever was playing games with me, a hoarse voice finally came through. Laura, if back then, I had told you I wanted to marry you, would it be me standing beside you right now? I exhaled slowly. Domingo, even if we had gotten married, we wouldn't have lasted. I see that clearly now. I never loved you. Liking someone and loving them are two very different things. A pause. Then, a shaky breath. Laura, I smiled faintly. Goodbye. Domingo, may you have a safe journey. Let's never meet again. And with that, I ended the call. Turning around, I saw Benjamin in the kitchen, carefully preparing a meal for me. A warm, overwhelming sense of contentment washed over me. I walked up behind him, wrapping my arms around his solid waist, pressing my cheek against his back. Softly, I murmured, Benjamin, now that you've chosen me, you're stuck with me for life. Benjamin let out a quiet chuckle. That, he said, is exactly what I was hoping for.